Hello, class. I want to take our factoring a little bit further. And so I want to show you we're going to solve by factoring. So not only are we going to factor a trinomial, a quadratic, but then we're actually going to solve for the solutions. The solutions are also called zeros. They're also called roots. And on the graph, they're your x-intercepts. Okay? So let me write that again, just so you know. So we're solving for the solutions, which also can be called the zeros, which can also be called roots, which are also your x-intercepts. And so because they're your x-intercepts, it's when y is going to be equal to 0. Okay? And so later we'll find other ways to solve, but since we've been doing factoring, I want to show you how we're going to take this to one more step to actually solve for the solutions. And so we're going to start with this equation up top. And so we have the 16x squared plus 60, I put b, let me put x for you. 60x minus 100 equals 0. Okay? And so when we're factoring and we're actually solving, if for some reason there's a constant or something else on the right side, you're going to have to bring it over. So everything has to be on the left side, and on the right side you have 0. So now we're going to factor. So remember, with factoring, our first step is there a greatest common factor? Is there something that I can divide into all three of those equally? Okay, so like pulling something out first. And the answer is yes in this case. And so I can take out a 4. So I'm going to put a 4 here. And so if I divide all these numbers, each number by 4, and technically you have to divide this one by 4, but 0 divided by 4 is still 0, so it doesn't really change our answer. And so we have 16 divided by 4, so that leaves us with 4x squared. And then we have 60 divided by 4. That's going to leave us with 15x. And then we have a negative 100 divided by 4. And so since it's a negative, make sure you put negative 25. And that's going to still equal 0. So our first step was taking out a greatest common factor. And in this case, it was this 4. Okay, we're going to now ignore that 4 for a minute, and we're going to do the AC method. So remember, the AC method is we have to think about, okay, what is A, B, and C? And so in this case, A is 4, B is 15, and C is negative 25. And so the AC method says, okay, take A times C. So again, A is 4 and C is negative 25. And so 4 times a negative 25 gives me a negative 100. And so now we need to factor that. And we need to factor it so that when I add them together, they're going to equal 15. And so you got to kind of think about this a little bit and see, okay, what makes the most sense here, right? So we can start thinking about how to factor 100. So we do know that we can do like a 4 times 25. And we would want the 4 to be negative, right? Because B is positive, which is 15. And so if I add these together, I get 21, which does not match. 21 is not B, it's not 15. So that is not the factor I'm looking for, so I got to keep trying. So what else gives me 100, right? We can do 10 times 10, and one of those has to be negative, but 10 times negative 10 does give me 100, but 10 minus 10 gives me 0. Well, B is definitely not 0, it's 15. So that one doesn't work either. So you gotta keep trying. Okay, and so what else is a factor of 100? That's what you're trying to figure out. Okay, and so we could try 5. So 5 times 20. And remember, the 15 is positive, so we probably want this one to be negative, the smaller one. And so when I add those together, I get -5 plus 20 does give me the 15. And so those are the factors that work. Okay. But then remember, anytime A is not 1, there's another step. And so in this case, A, remember over here, is 4. And so we have to take A and we've got to divide it by both of these factors and simplify where we can. And so this one actually doesn't simplify. And so the 4 is going to go with the X. Okay. And that -5 is going to go inside the parenthesis. Okay. So again, the 4 is going to go with the X and then -5. And that came from here. Okay. However, the 20 does reduce. So 20 divided by 4 actually goes in nice and pretty. And so we end up getting 5, just 5. And so we don't have to put a number with X. It's just going to be X because it reduced nicely. And then we're going to have +5. And so this was almost correct. The only thing you have to remember is that 4 that we had taken out at the very, very beginning, right, way up here, we need to still put that over here. Okay, and so factoring this is the answer for factoring. Okay, if we were just looking for the factors. We're going to take it one step further and we're going to solve. Okay, and so when I solve, I'm going to need a little bit of room, so I just want you to make sure you have this down. When I solve, I want to set each of those parentheses equal to 0, because remember we've got a 0 up here. And so we're going to set it equal to 0 because we're solving for the zeros. That's another way to kind of think about it. But the issue is we have this 4 right here. And so you want to distribute this 4 just to help you solve. Okay? And so to solve this, let me erase my little tree so that we have room. To solve this, we are going to distribute that 4 to make it kind of a little easier. So we're going to have 4 times x, so that gives me 4x, plus 20. Okay? And so I'm going to take that first piece. Let's just make that one yellow. Okay? So we're going to take the yellow one, the first one, and we're going to set it equal to 0. Okay? And we're going to solve. So I need to solve for x. So minus 20 for both sides. So I get 4x equals -20. And so divide both sides by 4. And so I get x is equal to -5. That is one of my solutions. Okay, that was that yellow one. Now we've got to do the other factor. And so the other factor is this one over here. We'll put it in green. We're going to set that one also equal to 0. Okay. So let's do it over here where I have room. 4x minus 5 equals 0. Then we're going to solve for x. So we're going to add 5 to both sides. So we get 4x equals 5. Then we're going to divide both sides by 4. And so we do get a decimal here. And so you can leave it as 5/4. Or if it's easier to graph as a decimal, you could get a decimal. And so we say, okay, 5 divided by 4 is going to give us 1.25. And that's my other solution. Now remember, I talked about the solutions being the x-intercepts or the zeros or the roots. These are all the same names. On the graph, you'll see these as the x-intercepts. And so I kind of want to show you, I had pre-graphed it for us. And so if I go over here and I show you I graphed right? So right here is the original function, and I graphed it. And so we had solved by factors, by getting the factors. But if I click right here on my x-intercepts, you will see that I get the root, they're calling it a root here, we get 1.25 comma 0. So because it's an x-intercept, the y value is going to be 0 because it's going over your x-axis, okay? But this is a solution, 1.25 comma 0. The other solution we found is right here. It's the other x-intercept. And you'll see that it came out to be negative 5 comma 0. And so this shows us that we did in fact do this correctly here because we got negative 5, right? And we also got the 1.25. And so we did it correctly. Okay, so it's your turn to try.